come to do a walk around the grounds of Hurstman Zoo Observatory here. This was the observatory that was built when they closed Greenwich down because the light had got too much in London, and then this was eventually closed down when the south of England got developed, again because there was too much light. But it's very, very interesting in there. There is still a working telescope in there, and they have open nights. But anyway, the whole point is that I've come here because I've been grumbling like mad that I haven't seen any oak trees or horse chestnut trees around and about on our walks. So we've come to walk in the woods here, so I can find some oak trees and horse chestnut trees. And of course what my husband Mike told me is that a lot of the oaks in the south of England all the old oaks were cut down for boat building, and then again because this area had so many trees cut down for brickworks, were actually not very wealthy in ancient trees in East Sussex. So many of the trees we'll see are quite modern trees, I suppose, although oaks are very, very slow growing. So we'll go and have a look and see what we can find anyway. The whole point of these videos is to look at plants, not necessarily just for medicinal value, but to show you the wide variety of uses that plants have to them. Actually, I'm looking down here because I've just spotted chickweed, so I've got to show you this because it's very interesting. See this little plant here? It really is a weed, and this is chickweed, but chickweed is the most fantastic plant for making a cream for eczema, and it's the traditional anti-eczema cream. And what you would do is pick the whole plant and make it into a paste, and then use that to make a cream. Such a gorgeous little plant. Walking through the field here, and we've stopped to have a look at the sweet chestnuts. There's a big stand of them all the way along here, and inside these very prickly shells here are the sweet chestnuts that you roast and eat, and the very same ones that you would put in stuffing at Christmas. They're not quite ripe yet and not splitting open. It'll be a little bit further into October before those will be ripe and open and split and release the nuts. They're very, very prickly and sharp, so I'm not going to try and pick one off and show you. You have to take my word for it. That's a case that was fallen on the ground, and if you open it up you can see the chestnuts in there. Those are actually quite a decent size for English chestnuts, and although they look, obviously they're so much smaller than the ones that you would buy in the shops because those are from Spain, those are completely edible and very, very tasty. As far as I know, they don't have any medicinal value, but of course they are food, so there's a plant that's got food value to it. We stopped to have a look at this beautiful oak tree. Have a look at it. Quite big, so it's fairly old. And then, when I was looking downwards, I noticed these rose hips here. And that's another example of a plant that has excellent medicinal value, because what they would have done in ancient times is picked all these hips, because that was going to be probably the only source of vitamin C that they had throughout the winter, and rose hips will pick and dry quite nicely. But if I show you that and bite into it, obviously you'd have to get rid of all the seedy bits, and then the soft pulpy bit is the bit that has got the high vitamin C in it. And some of you will remember that just after the war, every child was allocated an amount of rosehip syrup to take daily, and I used to love that rosehip syrup, and it was because it was very high in vitamin C. Let me remind you though, not to pick any plants and eat them unless you absolutely know 101% what they are. We'll move on to the oak now. We pull this branch of the oak down so that you can see the beautiful leaf. I'm sure you all know what oak leaf looks like. And then all the acorns, look, growing in their cups on the tree. I love to see things like this. It's so reassuring to know that this happens year after year. Nature just kind of carries on regardless. But I've picked these up from the ground, and that's the little cases that the acorn sits in, like that. Oh yeah. And I always used to pick these with the children when they were little and tell them they were fairy drinking cups, and of course children love that. There's the acorns there, and this is very interesting. That's fallen out now, but I picked that up from the ground. That was sitting in the cup like that, and sitting on the end of it is an oak gall, and the oak gall is formed by a wasp laying its egg and producing this, not quite sure what happens around here, but anyway, this the growing larva produces this around it, and that's called a gall. Many plants have galls on them. The oak gall is very, very high in tannin and is therefore used medicinally for toning up mucous membranes in the body, but also tannin was used to tan leather. That's what it's called, tannin. Tan leather, an animal hide in the past. The part of the oak that has the medicinal value is the bark and also the acorn. And during the war, when they couldn't get hold of coffee, acorns were dried and ground and then cut into coffee to make it go further. And also they were fed to pigs in the past, but they are very, very bitter because of the high tannin content, so I understand they don't use it so much as a pig food now. But of course when pigs were running wild in the woods, they would have been eating acorns amongst other foods. Well, there I was thinking that we were just going to look at a few trees on this walk, and here in the field there is some chicory, which is quite interesting. Chicory is a very astringent plant, so the root of it is used as a bitter herb and very good for the digestive system. But of course it's another plant that they used to use as a coffee substitute, and again it's the root that they dried and ground up and cut into coffee again to make the coffee go further. It's got the most beautiful blue flower on it. This bit of the walk is through a little beech wood, which you can see there. All these very tall trees are beech trees, and it's another example. Can you come back to me? It's another example of a good source of food if you had nothing else to eat. Here in my hand, that's the casings from the nuts, and those are the beech nuts. They are very small, but they're very edible, and so if you were hungry and you needed something in the forest, you could eat the beech nuts. You would need to eat quite a lot of them to stop you being hungry, but it's a food source. I expect the squirrels absolutely love them. I'm going to try one. you go, there's the nut. There's the nut. Really nice. Really nice. Come on, over the fence. Here's another example of how you really have to know your plants. If you have seen the walk on the shingle beach around the harbour, you will have seen me talking about the ragwort, which is very poisonous, and the St John's wort, which has medicinal value, growing literally side by side, the flowers of which look very similar, so you have to be very careful about what you're picking. Here we've got hawthorn berries, and we've got black bryony berries. And you can imagine how easy it would be if you were picking hawthorn berries to pick a few of those and not take too much notice, and to pick these. Black bryony is a poisonous plant. It is used in herbal medicine, not by modern herbalists anymore, but it was used in the past in very, very, very tiny amounts for rheumatic conditions, and also to make a paste for rheumatic joints. But it is very poisonous, and really no modern day herbalist would use that anymore, because there are other safer plants that do the job. Along the hedgerow here there's sloes, and the berries of the sloes are picked to put into gin, to make sloe gin. They're extremely sour and very bitter, so they would have good digestive system properties. But what the sloe was used for in ancient times, not in modern day anymore, is the bark of the sloe was used as what they call a cathartic, which meant that if you took an infusion of the bark, it would make you go to the toilet and make you have diarrhea, basically, and clear everything out. That's obviously what cathartic means. I thought we were going through the whole walk without having found a horse chestnut tree, but right at the end of the walk, just where the car is parked, here are two horse chestnut trees together. That's the case that the nut grows in, and I've picked up conkers from the floor, which are the nuts, and I love conkers. Every year I made my children and grandchildren go and collect conkers, and we'd have conker matches. Mike, my husband, says these look like very good conkers for conker fights. But anyway, back to herbal medicine. The bark and the nut of the horse chestnut contains something called esculin, and esculin is one of very few ingredients in herbal medicine that will tone up veins, and so I put the tincture in all mixes for people who come to me with varicose veins or broken veins or any kind of vein problem. And also I put the tincture into all creams for varicose veins and hemorrhoids. So that is the horse chestnut tree. Probably won't make any more herb walk videos throughout the winter, because pretty soon the plants will die off and the leaves will fall off the trees, so everything's going to be a little bit barren. But what we might do is just make some country walk videos, because the countryside in winter is so beautiful. But we'll start making more herb walks in the spring, round about May time, when all the plants are out again. If you want to see other videos that we've made, visit the website on www.herbalhealthinformation.com. See you next spring. Bye!